The following is a presentation of the Six Arrows Radio Network.
On this episode, we'll give our guests a holiday break and take a time out to cover where the Field Radio podcast has been and where it's going. This is the Ham Radio 360 Field Radio podcast. This show is brought to you by Chameleon Antenna. Versatile, dependable, stealth, and built to last. I'm your host, John Jacobs, W7DBO. If this is your first time hearing this show, thank you for clicking and tuning in. This show is part of the Ham Radio 360 network. This show releases every other Thursday, and The Workbench with George and Jeremy releases the opposing Tuesdays. Kale, with the original HR 360 show, releases the Tuesday before this show. You can find our show notes and links on the web at fieldradiopodcast.org. Also, be sure to check out our YouTube channel for expanded content not included in the podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at Field Radio Pod and Facebook at Field Radio Podcast. In way of news, MTC Radio reported that they raised $1,098 and donated an additional $500 that went to Patrick Brown, AK5TX. If you want more information, I will link the email sent out from Richard and Lenore in the show notes. If you missed our live stream on YouTube last week, I fired up the studio and conducted a live stream breaking down the components in my HT Go bag. Thank you for those who participated live and those who saw the recording. There's a link to the show in the show notes. If you have a YouTube account, be sure to subscribe and click the bell icon to hear of upcoming live events. Or you can follow me on Facebook and Twitter to get notifications. Lastly, I have a Field Radio specific email list you can subscribe to, and we'll notify you that way of upcoming events. All of these links can be found in the show notes. Last item of news is that the Workbench podcast with George and Jeremy have a new feed for the podcast. If you tune into their show, be sure to update your feed settings with the new feed that is live as of last week. Just like when I launched, Kel and the gang decided it was best user experience to have the Field Radio podcast in its own feed. It's working out better that way, and the Workbench feed will work the same, so listeners can keep up on the show releases. They teased that they did have tote bags, but I decided that the Field Radio podcast listeners should have the opportunity to buy tote bags, so that is available in the gear store. For more information on the new feed and their new companion website, go to hamradioworkbench.com. So I mentioned at the top of the show this is going to be a year in review, half a year in review since I started in July. This release comes right after Christmas, and in the holiday season in general, I didn't want to have to try and work through schedules to bring a guest on. Also, I had done the HT Go Bag live stream. I was going to provide you the audio in this podcast, but it just really needs to be viewed to be able to see what I'm talking about. So I encourage you for this week to go to the YouTube channel and watch the live stream recorded on breaking down my HT Go Bag. I thought I would take this opportunity to review where we are with the Field Radio podcast and where I want to see this venture go. I also wanted to take this opportunity to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy Holiday season, and hope this time of year has been good to you and your family. I also wanted to thank our show sponsor, Chameleon Antenna, for their sponsoring of the shows. I have a general roadmap of the podcasts, and I would like to hear of your feedback on what is going good, what is not so good, and what areas of interest you would like to see covered. I have had some great guests on in the past and look forward to new ones. The guests I've had on have offered to come back in future episodes. So if you have a specific deep dive on a topic, we do have a great pool to draw from. So please send me your feedback and show ideas to John at hamradio360.com. So the first item is I feel good about the show format being interviewing guests and then a training item or tips and tricks. So I believe the format in that concern will stay the same. I think the shows will go back to the half-hour mark versus the hour mark. This aids in two areas. First, allows more production time to focus on YouTube videos, and releases the pressure to find as many guests. If the topic goes over a half hour, look for it to be broken up into two parts. The next item is I'm going to learn from our friend Kale and build in some downtime in advance every year. I too have a young family, and the grind of producing content every other week does take a toll over time. So I'm going to build in 2 annual breaks. The first will be after Field Day wrap-up show in July, and the break will extend until September. This will give me time in the summer to get outdoors, experience field radio, and gather some great material to bring back to you in the fall. The next break will be the month of December. As I learned this year that my schedule is busy and guests are busy also, so it's a good time to relax with the family over the break and start up again in the new year. So in total, 21 shows will release in 2018. Next item is the show pendulum will be shifting to YouTube videos. In addition to the 21 podcast episodes, there will be frequent releases of content on YouTube channel. I still love the podcast format and the chance to interview guests. However, there are still items that just suit better visually, and YouTube is a great medium to share. I've already done some over the past 6 months, including the recent live stream. So look in the future for more live stream, demonstrations of gear, how-to videos, product review, and as the weather warms up, much more videos of operating in the field. A few more items to round out what to expect from the Field Radio podcast in 2018. I would like to take the show to Xenia, Ohio for the Dayton Hamvention. The idea is to take a small production team and do video and podcast interviews from Hamvention. If we can swing good enough data, run some live stream of the events. We want to interview vendors, get first look at new products, and interview attendees with a focus on field radio. Now to make this happen, it is a financial investment, so we are asking for your help. We have set up a GoFundMe page to help in this process. First, if you have an amateur radio related company and would like some extra coverage around Dayton, we have some corporate sponsorship spots. For the individual, we have some options for some hats, beanies, or shirt based on levels of support. I'm getting started on this early and hoping to lock up enough corporate sponsor levels to make this happen. You can find more information on this at fieldradiopodcast.org or in the show notes. Next item is we have a new splash page at fieldradiopodcast.org. This splash page organizes content relating to the podcast and YouTube videos. It has recent items, links to the gear store, and my personal blog, and options to sign up for the notification email list. This will provide better organization to the content I am producing between the podcast, YouTube channel, and blog posts. You will find many of the links roll back to the Ham Radio 360 site. This is meant as a complementary page and not a replacement of Ham Radio 360. On the site, you will notice a Patreon page has also been set up. I have been asked by some to set this up so that listeners can donate to the show to cover the hosting costs. We do have a sponsor, but that does not cover all the costs. So thank you in advance to those who choose to donate to the show's success. I mentioned in the last show that we do have a gear store. This is your chance to get Field Radio logo gear to sport in the wild. The store is located at thefieldradiopodcast.org, and we are continuing this first month using the promo code HR360 for free shipping. Products print on demand and usually come a week later. I just got a great shirt and hat that you will find pictures of in the show notes. Last item before we wrap up is once again, thank you for a successful first 6 months. The support I have seen from the Ham Radio 360 family has been great. Thank you to Cale, George, and Jeremy for helping get the show launched and their continued support. Thank you to the guests of the show that came forward and offered to share with us all of your experience. And most of all, thank you to the listener for your support. I look forward to a great year in 2018. Happy New Year, and thank you, 73.